Schräge Musik, a story of hesitation and confusion. As you are probably well aware, Schräge Musik, or off-tune music, is the name Germans gave to fighter-mounted upward-firing autocannons. We have a few aircraft with that type of gun placement in our game as well, like the Ki-45 Ti and the Dornier 217 J2. What considerably fewer people know is that the story of this design is a story full of hesitation and confusion. The Luftwaffe started to use Schräge Musik as early as the spring of 1943, but it took the British a whole year to realize what was actually happening with their bombers. When they finally connected the dots, the top brass decided to withhold this information from the pilots in order not to frighten them. Really, it's a given that during World War I, both sides experimented heavily with different designs for upward-firing guns to fight bombers and airships. It's also a given that the British themselves kept on tinkering with these designs even after World War I. And yet again, it's a given that Jack Northrop had already shown his P-61 to the RAF. Yep, that P-61 where you could easily switch the 4 machine guns in the turret to the upward firing position. What's even crazier is that the British weren't the only ones suddenly baffled by Schräge Musik. When American pilots started to suffer unsuspected losses on the Pacific Front, it somehow took them also quite a while to figure it out. But you'd be wrong to think that at least Germans knew what they were doing. One of the German aces of World War I that went by the name of Tida suggested that Luftwaffe should consider this design way before World War II, but nobody listened. The Reich was getting its war machine ready for conquest. Protecting German skies? Who needs that when you bring war to the other's doorstep? People kept mentioning Schräge Musik even after the start of the new big war. But while Wehrmacht tanks were rolling over one European country after another, and aircraft with black crosses on their wings ruled the skies of Europe, the ears of the High Command stayed deaf to these ideas. Only after the failure of the Battle of Britain and the catastrophic losses of Moscow and Stalingrad, the Germans started to sober up. They desperately needed something, anything, to try to stop the terror that was the night bombing raids of the Allied forces. That's when this unconventional gun placement came in handy. But even at this point, it was a kind of grassroots thing, both in Germany and Japan. The first to change the way the guns were installed in the Luftwaffe was Oberleutnant Rudolf Schönert, and only after his fellow pilots followed suit, the High Command finally declared that night fighters should be outfitted with the Schräge Musik right on the factory floor. The aircraft that underwent this kind of modernization included the Dornier 217, the Junkers 88, and the Messerschmitt 110, and even the newest Heinkel HE 219. At roughly the same time, on the other side of the world, in Rabaul, where bombers were falling practically 24/7, Commander Yasuna Kozono decided to do the same thing with his Nakajima J1N1, which led to him being penalized for acting without an order, even though he shot down 2 B-17s during his very first night mission. Keep in mind that German pilots were already using modern radar to find targets, while the Japanese still had to rely on their eyes. Nevertheless, the potential of Kozono's modification was so obvious that the Navy took immediate notice. Very soon, all sorts of aircraft, including the Nakajima C-6N Saiun reconnaissance aircraft, the Yokosuka P-1Y Ginga bombers, even some Zeros were being refitted to carry upward-firing guns. The Army followed in the Navy's footsteps, rearming the Ki-45 and even equipping Ki-46s with 37mm HO-203 autocannons. Why was Schräge Musik that devastatingly effective? The first reason was that a night fighter with upward-firing guns was almost invisible when flying against the background of the dark Earth, even at an arm's reach. What made the matters worse was that most bombers of the time rarely had effective ventral armaments, if any at all, which made them an easy prey. Number 2. The element of surprise. Even in late 1944, Allies were still not ready to believe that German pilots would really commit to this exotic way of mounting guns, which they did, coming up with special training methods and manuals. Number 3. Schräge Musik was relatively easy to set up and use. Almost any fighter aircraft was eligible for this kind of modernization, and it didn't take much skill for an experienced pilot to aim upward-firing guns at an aircraft in straight, level flight. The hard part was to get close. After that, the prize was yours for the taking.